hazelnut.
Good morning. Welcome to SJU. We're drinking hazelnut coffee
It smells
and
really
ready
good. Sorry.
to rock this internet. It does smell really good. This is Mr. Dan Murrell with no beverage.
No beverage.
No beverage.
On the table. I had one before the show.
If
You're
I
a
left
pro.
to
You're
got
Like
you
a
a water.
professional.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm having a tea. I'm Roth Cornet. This is Mr. Billy Business. Again, no beverage.
But I am chewing gum, which is the height of
Billy.
professionalism
Yeah.
on air.
So your saliva is your morning beverage. And you, Mr. Joe Starr, have some hazelnut for us
Yep.
this morning.
And gum.
And we are here and ready
Doesn't
and
cancel each other
caffeinated. Yeah, it's actually kind of nasty. But we're caffeinated and ready to talk about the internet's most important question. We will be asking ourselves and you this very question for the next, count it down, 18 months, about roughly. Kevin Feige is talking about the Fox-Disney merger and when we might see that Wolverine fighting with that Iron Man. So in an interview with Vulture, he was asked on the red carpet, or pardon me, the purple carpet for Black Panther, hey, what's going on with the Fox-Disney merger there? And he said, hey, listen, man, quote, I read about it in the press like most people did. These are big deals and certainly above my pay grade, indicating that he had no clue that this was going to happen, which I have trouble believing. And then when he asked about folding in the characters from Fox with the MCU, he said there's been no communication yet. We're not thinking about it. We're focusing on everything we've already announced. If and when the deal actually happens, we'll start to think more about it. Until then, we have a lot of work to do. And he just kept, when they kept pressing him, naturally, because I would have done the same thing, Vulture, you did the right thing. He was like, it's years away. I don't know. I have trouble believing that. That's point one that I want us to discuss. But two is that Kevin Feige's contract reportedly ends this year into 2018 at a certain point. So it is entirely possible that he's just mentally checked out. But the other thing I have to imagine is that he's in an awesome bargaining position because who else is going to figure this out?
He would not
Dan
be the
Murrell is.
first Marvel person that would openly kind of negotiate with, like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. We've seen, like, Robert Downey Jr. do it. We've seen Chris Evans do it. We've seen a lot of them like, I don't know, Disney, do you want me back? Like, I could totally see him playing something like that, too. He has no reason to come out and spill his guts about any of this.
No, he is. And he's really good at saying a lot without saying anything with the press.
I mean, I'm usually Mr. Skepticism, but I actually kind of believe him here just because the dude's got, 2 more years of movies, 3 more years of movies planned out. He can't, as a creative person, you can't just like stop what you're doing on the off chance that maybe a year and a half to 2 years, given governmental regulations, 1 or more of these movies could potentially have to incorporate TBD characters that may or may not be the same versions that are already like. You can't do that. So I know that the fan instinct is going to be like the minute the ink is dry on that deal, if it goes through, to be like, okay, now where's Iron Man and Wolverine? But it's like that is a terrible movie. I'll tell you right now, if you shove Wolverine into some other pre-existing Marvel movie willy-nilly, completely unplanned,
It's full on Hawkeye in Thor.
It's not gonna. Yeah, it's full. It's Hawkeye and Thor. It's not gonna make sense.
They did exactly that with Spider-Man in Civil War at the last minute. It kind of worked out great.
Not at the very last minute. I mean, I think they had enough time. Like, I remember they said they had 2 versions of the script. They had 1 Spider-Man script. They had 1 non-Spider-Man script. It happened early enough that they were still shooting the movie, that if the deal had fallen through with Sony, they could have gone through and done the version without him. And even then, like, they happen to get that one right, but I don't think that you can ask of him to do that now for every MCU movie down the line, depending on some timeline that who knows what the regulation timeline is, to prep 3 different versions that might have different versions of the character. Like, if people are actually fans of these characters, I think what they should want is to wait and see if this deal goes through and then allow Marvel to organically brainstorm and figure out the best ways to bring these heroes to the screen instead of just like jamming all of them on screen as soon as possible. Like, that's what got us in this situation to begin with. That's what happened with the big superhero boom of the early 2000s, was everyone's just like, I don't know, Daredevil, who cares, whatever, just what he's suit man, go shoot. And
Suitman
you don't
as
want
a
that.
kid was he was my favorite character, and I felt like they did not do him justice at all. I don't know. I mean, I agree with what you're saying on a fundamental basis. I think that both Fox and Disney are in a really tricky spot now, though, in the sense that they're going to have to spend the next year creatively going, like, we have to begin to think about what our plan is should this merger happen in a number of different ways across that both those corporations. But certainly in terms of those characters, Gambit's off the table again.
Poor Gambit. I know that on the comics end of Marvel, they do these annual creative retreats, and they're sort of a big deal, and fans always start sniffing around for someone to talk about. Oh, I came out of the creative retreat, and usually it seems like they kind of go like short term, a little bit in the future, and then like 5 years from now. And sometimes they end up with something really cool, or then sometimes they end up with something like Secret Invasion, Civil War Part 4, and you're like, But I can something I've seen from reading interviews and stuff with writers, and obviously the MCU is a different beast from the comic books, but creatively, they say, hey, we kind of have this thing in 5 years that we kind of want to get to, but across those 5 years, it has adjusted, it's changed, and it's evolved based on things that have happened. So I'm assuming there's something, whether it's Wolverine fights Iron Man on a whiteboard, I don't know. But I'm assuming there's something that's gonna written on a whiteboard that's going to slowly sort of mutate and X-Men and evolve and be doused in cosmic rays, sort of as these deals come through.
I also pictured them fighting on a whiteboard. Billy, I mean, they have to be having some kind of conversations, whether Feige is involved in them or not. Which again, it's like if you're having that conversation at all, and if you're not including him, to me, that means he really is leaving.
Well, here's the thing. Since you're not taking the cynical road, I'll take the cynical road today. And I'll say, just because Disney does not leave any I undotted, any T uncrossed, I truly don't think that they would have gone through with this deal if they didn't already have the lobbyists in place, if they didn't already have an idea that there was no way that this was going to get stopped. So I feel like, and more of like, I don't know what's going to happen in a year. I don't know. This could not happen. I think they damn well know it's going to happen. And I think they're planning for it as we speak. Now, in terms of Feige, if he wants to stick around for it, again, I'll take the cynical road. I think he's in the perfect position to be like, guys, I not only knocked it out of the park once, this was like a home run derby. Look what I've done for you since the beginning. You have a whole new chest of toys opening up to you. What am I worth to you? That's what I personally think.
Or does he mic drop it and then have like carte blanche at any
Nobody
other
mic
studio?
drops. Nobody can mic drop.
But
Jordan couldn't
people
mic
should.
drop.
But people should mic drop. That's the thing.
They should,
Feige
but they
is
don't.
about to put a flourish, and unless something goes horrifically wrong, he's about to put a flourish on an 11-year impossible project of just, if you look across the breadth, number of movies, kind of an unprecedented amount of critical and financial success. Why I would totally see just like, why would I tempt fate? Why would I now risk alienating comic book fans by trying this all over again, but with even more moving pieces, with even more places to go wrong, completely starting from scratch, more than likely. I mean, whether they do something with Infinity War that completely resets everything, or whether you just have certain characters that are now off the table and you're still starting from scratch because you have to bring in new ones or develop the other ones that you just brought in. If I were him, I would walk away from the table. I take my chips, cash them in, and go do whatever. Plus, maybe the guy wants to do something besides. He's been doing comic book movies for 20. How many comic book years has he been doing comics? He's been since Hulk, since Daredevil, since Ang Lee. I mean, maybe the guy wants to do something else.
Maybe he wants to hear. Quick thought, chime in. I want to hear. But his very favorite thing is Star Wars. Like, is there any room at Lucasfilm for him to fit in, or no? Or is there other
Not with
things?
Kathleen
I was
Kennedy
going to say,
there,
good
no.
luck praying that out of Kathleen Kennedy's hands. Good.
Cool,
That's a
Dad.
fight
You
I
don't
would
want
not
two
want.
people like you don't want Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige
No,
running
that's
Star Wars because they're two great producers and they're both going to be. Who do you give what to? You don't want
Sometimes
infighting.
conflict yields great creative results. I don't know.
Conflict almost never yields great
No, it
results.
does. It absolutely
Well,
does.
tangentially speaking, I would love it if like Kathleen Kennedy did the episodes and someone else kind of shepherded the what do they call it? Anthologies
Stories.
or whatever.
The Star
'cause
Wars
those seem to
stories.
be
Stories.
a little hit and miss, a little rough goings, at least production wise. But I don't know. I personally, the other thing too with Feige is like, hey, yeah, sure, he should walk away and drop that mic. How many greats do, though? Very few. A lot of people end up just tarnishing their own legacy because they don't know when to quit. Two, we don't know. It could be, you could look at it as ego, but you could also look at it as this is a challenge. He's played with the same characters. He's kind of had the roadmap so far with a limited amount. I mean, he took Iron Man, who most people didn't know Iron Man, and turned him into a household name. Now he's like the challenge of getting a whole slew of new characters. It's like, what can you do with these? That might interest him. That might actually be the spark that wants to keep him around, is not having to play with the same 12 heroes.
If he wants to develop something long term, then that's up to him, and he's done a good job so far. Again, it's kind of like he'd be playing with house money, but I just worry that he would be setting himself up for disappointment. But where Marvel has gone wrong is in movies like Iron Man 2, where you start jamming in 15 characters into the mythology that don't have a place for it. And I think they learned from that and of course corrected from that, and they figured out now ways to introduce characters in their preceding movies that can pay off later on, like Vision and Black Panther and Spider-Man. If they follow this instinct, if Avengers 4 has a thing that says the X-Men are coming, I'm going to, as a fan, I would just start being like, uh-oh, because that to me smacks of, all right, we're just grabbing characters now, and we're going to throw them up on the screen as quick as we can. And I've already lived through one cinematic universe that's hastily assembled from whatever characters you can grab from the comics without much regard to their background or the mythology or an overarching storyline. And it didn't turn out so great. And I'm not talking about the MCU. I really think that...
Dark Universe.
Yes, the Dark Universe. I really think that if Marvel wants to make this work, they need to do... If they get these new characters, they need to do what they've done with every other property they've had so far, which is to sit down, to strategize, to develop a long-term plan for how these characters will be introduced and interact with each other, because otherwise you're just doing it piecemeal, willy-nilly, and people have shown statistically that they don't want that.
I don't know. I mean, I think if anyone can do it, it's Feige, right? Like, because he had this vision a long time ago. But the only way he would do it, I believe, is if he had a vision for how this can work. And if he doesn't, I think he'll be out and he will mic drop.
I just think
go
those
live
plans
on a
are
beach.
happening. I think those plans are happening literally right now.
I think they are absolutely happening, and they have to be happening. We're seeing shifts in schedules between Fox and Disney. There is no way that conversations are not happening, whether he's involved or not. Just indicates to me whether he's continuing or not. I don't think he'll continue if he doesn't have a good idea. As far as conflict goes, I think there's good conflict in which people disagree, because we've seen terrible things happen to filmmakers who just have yes people around them and no one to question their decisions. I think there's a healthy version of that, and there's probably an unhealthy version of that, which includes Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige sharing an office. It's probably not a good idea.
Filmmakers and producers conflict creates oftentimes great art, because you have two people that have to kind of serve two different masters, and a lot of times between a producer and a filmmaker, I agree, conflict can produce compromise that actually is better for the movie. What I mean is behind the scenes conflict between like, two executives or two producers on the same property generally do not generate a great film.
Where could that be happening in the world? I mean, that's happening in a bunch of studios. It certainly seems to be happening in what we see released in the press at studios, that people are not on the same page about what they want creatively, but Disney has always felt very cohesive about that. So I am curious to see where it goes, and we will be talking about this for, count us down, like 17 more months?
17 months, 29 more days.
Well, we're not going to stop talking about it once the merger happens.
This is true.
Be like, oh, we're done with superheroes, and we're going to talk about it more. So
until the internet is replaced by the hollow reality.
Yeah.
Ready Player One VR.
Yeah, full on Ready Player One. You know what's sad is that the real Ready Player One will not be everybody in avatars and doing crazy adventures. It will just be their avatars will be probably sitting at desks and reviewing movies. Being like, ah.
I know. I feel like my avatar will just be like a crudely assembled version of myself that just is has abs. Like that's every time just
drawn on.
Every time I get to make an avatar for myself, I'm like, and 1 ab, 2 ab, 3 ab, 4 ab, 5 ab, 6. Yep, that's me. I nailed it.
Like people with their Sims, they're like, my Sim is going grocery shopping. I'm like, why? Fuck, your Sim can do anything. Oh, I'm sorry for cursing. I really am. Someone sent me a thing the other day, and they have Watch Us, and they were so nice, and have kids. So I'm sorry. I'm gonna be better. Penny in the jar. Speaking of self-punishment.
By the way, we don't condone hitting yourself. If you make a mistake, it's okay. We're human.
In fact, we believe that you should stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
Just like
stop hitting yourself.
Stop hitting yourself, internet. Stop hitting yourself.
House of
That's not how you
Cards
meant it.
has resumed production, and cast members have been added. We know that they are moving forward with their final season, and they are centering the show now around Robin Wright's character. But there's some new people coming as well. There'll be 8 episodes. Continuing on with Robin Wright, Michael Kelly, Jane Atkinson, Patricia Clarkson, Constance Zimmer, Derek Cecil, Campbell Scott, and Boris MacGyver. But in addition, Diane Lane and Greg Kinnear are joining as siblings, which I don't know what it is, but color me intrigued. I don't know why that pairing is
Those are
just
big
intriguing.
gets.
Yeah.
Those are big
Two
gets.
good actors, very
Yeah.
good actors, award-nominated actors. As are many of the others in the show. No Nev Campbell in this list. I don't know if it was just left off of our
Oh,
list.
she
I haven't seen the.
she is
Oh, did she?
no longer?
Oh, that's right.
I know a few
I
of you.
forgot.
I know a few of you dropped off because you didn't like the show anymore.
I forgot.
We stuck with it.
That's how memorable the last season was. Honestly, I
yeah.
completely forgot.
I think I'm
about
picking
certain
up
things.
on
Yeah.
on what may have happened to her, though.
House of
Yeah.
Cards was always a tough watch for me because I felt like, first of all, I felt like 11th grade government failed me because I was like, I haven't heard of half of this. I was like,
Yeah.
a whip? I was
Sure.
Like, I was
Oh.
like, what is a whip? So I feel like at least the first couple seasons, half the time I was just Googling, trying to like keep up. I was like, I have no idea how our country works. I have no idea how anything works.
He whips votes, Billy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the vote.
It's like, does he just beat him into submission?
Like
Like,
pretty
he
much.
will
Pretty
do
much.
this.
Politically, yes.
Yeah, politically.
What a terrible name that is
Negotiator
for
the
it.
whip.
Like the Schoolhouse
It's two in
Rock
the
song.
nose.
Yeah.
The whip intimidates people into doing what his party wants. Dun, 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 dun.
Don't you
Yeah,
feel
that
like,
was-
favorite one.
like most politicians were like serious nerds who then want to have like cool code names for what they do? Like we're the Gang of 8. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
Yeah, Gang of 8.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. And they're like, here's my talking stick, and that's real.
Yeah. If I was ever a senator, I'd be like, who wants to join the Blood Knife Panthers?
I'm excited to see what they do with this. Can they pull it off?
I'm sure they can. I mean, it's gonna be difficult. I mean, there's always gonna be the elephant in the room. Obviously they're gonna have to
And a
handle
donkey.
it off and a donkey because it's a bipartisan show.
Politics
Good one,
joke.
Joe.
I Googled that.
I mean, they're obviously gonna have to handle it off screen, which is gonna be awkward. It's gonna be a bit like Poochie flew to his home planet. But for good reason. I'm hoping that it falls on the writers now, because if they create a storyline compelling enough that you don't think about, like, as a viewer, I kind of thought that storyline had run its course by the end of last season. It was in a place where I'm just like, I don't really care what's happening with Frank Underwood. I'm now much more invested in what's happening with Claire Underwood. So personally, as a fan of the show, I obviously not a fan, enough of a fan to remember what happened last season, but still a fan. I'm interested to see what happens, but it's going to be a bit awkward at the beginning because you're just going to have to like, what? Oh, on television, what happened? It's going to be weird, but it all comes down to what they do for the story of this season and wrapping up this kind of saga. Patricia Clarkson plays a great character.
And
I can't wait to see what they do with her.
Yeah, with Constance Zimmer coming in and Diane Lane and Greg Kinnear coming in. I'm a huge Constance Zimmer fan ever since the first season of Unreal. I don't know if you guys watched that or not.
Great
It's
show.
bonkers.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
great.
I'm really excited because I'm with you. By the end of last season, Frank Underwood was literally, they would just cut to him in his pajamas sometime,
Yeah.
and he would be like,
In a
now
hotel
here's
room."
what I think. And you're just like, I don't care. I actively don't care about you anymore.
What if it's just like he's a madman in this created? I stopped watching in season 2, but what if he's just like randomly talking to himself and knocking on things, and he's
But
just
that's
gone fully
really
insane?
what he was doing for
That's
the
where
last
he was at,
season
right?
of the show. He was just ranting and raving, and
Yeah.
he
To
was
himself.
literally alone in a hotel room.
Yeah.
like that's just like good.
Yeah.
check out.
There's
And-
more heat on us than a Georgia summer at a pie competition. Blah, blah, blah. I think this gives the writers' room a ton of focus. They don't have to serve this like dying storyline anymore, because he was. It was just like, what more can you do? I don't care.
They'd escalated it so much that literally the only thing left for Frank Underwood to do would be to like nuke Minnesota.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he had gone
Yeah.
so like it had escalated so much. It was
But it
like
escalated by season 2. Where
But, I
he-
mean,
he
like,
was just
imagine-
like murder.
Well, that was
triple
my-
triple
well, my
season
thing
2.
was, I always
it's
felt-
so
Yeah.
out of the realm of just like
It was season
Right.
2 times
staging
1,000.
things.
I always
and-
felt
yeah,
like the show
exactly.
lost a little steam when he actually became president. I felt like it was so much more interesting watching him plot, and then once you get to the top, you're like, Oh, okay.
It's like a weird version of a will they, won't they?
Yeah.
Like, oh, the
I was
couple
just
got
thinking
together
that.
on Cheers. Like, you got to be president, and now it's kind of like, eh.
That's why on Veep they never really let Selena like even
Yeah.
when they let her have it, she didn't really have it. Like they just never actually let her achieve that thing, and so she's always within that tension of what is my place in this world.
Yeah. So I'm
Anyway.
interested in now how this,
Questions.
without him in the world, and I have a feeling that the first episode will just be like quick montage, montage. Oh, I just went to Boston.
Everyone do an accent.
I just went to Boston. It'll just be folding the flag over the coffin, 21 gun salute, and someone walking up to Claire and being like, "I'm so sorry," and she's gonna be like, "Me too," and then mug to the camera like,
Yeah. And then Freddy's like, oh, one rib too many.
"Whoa."
What if Freddy poisoned his ribs and that's how that would be
It was like a
poetic
slow
justice.
poisoning? Yeah.
Exactly.
I would
Just
like
a
that.
slow rib poisoning.
So I don't know if they go with the direction of like, does she have to like survive the? Do they go meta and they're like, does she have to survive the ghost of Kevin Spacey? Basically, like, does her presidency have to like be like, oh, that was all him. That was all him. All that weird murder train stuff. All that guy. Nothing to do with me. I'm clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
This
I
one's
don't
kind of like an end of an era, though, because I always associate House of Cards as like Netflix putting their flag in the ground.
It
that-
was.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's just like,
Absolutely was.
it's in that way, it's kind of like nostalgically bittersweet. That's like, oh, it's like the end of this beginning of streaming wars. Is
Yeah.
coming,
It's like
you
when
know?
The Sopranos went off the air, because The Sopranos, in my estimation, had kind of past its peak when it left. Partly because they would go off the air and then it'd be like 2 years, and it's like, what? Oh, that's right, Sopranos. And then but when it went off the air, it was like, oh wow, that was kind of the beginning of the, at least as far as like competing for awards and HBO being like the big network every year. Like The Sopranos is like the beginning of the cable revolution, and I agree. House of Cards is like. It was that Netflix show that
Yeah,
got
it's the opening
nominated for
salvo.
Emmys,
Yeah.
you know, that was like, oh wow, streaming services can make television too. So
And now Netflix movies can get nominated for Emmys, and everything is streaming, including Superman. Oh, God. That was my best segue in
That was a
weeks.
really good look up.
No, that was a great segue. I'm
No,
just
that was
this,
good. Look up in the sky, a bird, a plane, a segue.
Segue.
This story
Yes.
bothers me so much.
I know, and I'm excited for you to unpack it because it seems like, and this is what we talked about earlier, DC believes that we want all of Superman except we don't want Superman.
We want
involved.
everything adjacent, parallel, within a 5-mile radius of Superman, but you don't want Superman.
Nope.
Apparently. I don't get it.
Let's talk about this new show, Metropolis, which is a prequel, not unlike Gotham, before Superman's arrival. So, a city?
Same show writers as Gotham. No. It gets worse. It gets worse.
Like, that's just a city. What's your show about?
Metropolis.
Next one will be called Bloodhaven.
No. As comic book lore knows, Metropolis will focus on Lex Luthor and Lois Lane as they investigate the world of fringe science and expose the city's dark and bizarre secrets.
So it's Fringe.
It's Fringe, which is a show that
When
I
have
love.
Lex and Lois ever been like, you know what? Let's pause the crime. Let's pause all the reporting at the Daily
Yeah.
Planet and moving up the ladder.
Let's work
there.
together.
Let's go figure. Yeah.
Maybe,
guys.
maybe they're investigating a group of cases that might be called something like the X-Files, for example. Like, I loved Fringe, by the way. Here's a rant. Go watch Fringe. It's so worth it. You can watch all of it. It's a great show. What is this?
Can I predict a scene from an episode
please.
of Metropolis?
Please.
Lex Luthor and Lois Lane are at a crime scene, or some kind of science.
already love
They're at
it.
a
Or a
science
science
scene.
event.
They're at a science scene,
Okay.
and
Scene of science.
the police are there, and there's a body on the ground, and there's an elaborate puzzle, and Lex is looking at the puzzle. It's just like, I don't know, Lois, this is a real mind bender. And then Lois stands up and puts on sunglasses and says, yeah, whoever did this must have been some kind of brainiac.
Oh.
but because that's how Gotham did it. It's just like, oh, boy,
boy.
you are
You're a
some kind
joker.
of Riddler, Edward Nigma. Oh, I stopped watching Gotham because I was like,
Talk
enough
about Mr.
with this.
Freeze.
You're joking around with your jokes, you comedian. I
Help.
don't like to be cynical about these things, but this is not a good idea.
It's weird.
This
Cynical
hurts.
way.
Maybe it's amazing.
Here's the thing. We're getting Krypton, which
Yeah.
is about Superman's grandpa 200 years before Superman's born. Like, even that, I was like, I don't want to follow Bruce Wayne's grandpa, like Harvey Wayne, like 200 years before. Like, and so we had that. Plus, I don't know about any of you at this table. I dedicated 10 years of my life to Smallville. Those are 10 years I
didn't.
can't get back.
I couldn't hang,
I
no.
sat through the shitty witches stories, and I sat through when they let go of Michael Rosenbaum and they had like a fake Lex. I sat through all of it, and I clapped like a little monkey when we got the CGI Superman Returns recycled Superman at the end of the thing because Tom Welling will not put on the suit.
Really?
'cause
That was how they ended Smallville? They
Yeah.
recycled
they
Superman
recycled
Returns
Superman
CGI?
Returns CGI. So he like flies up to the window of a plane that Lois is on, and it's like his head weirdly bobbling on the Brandon Routh costume because he refused to put on the suit.
Yeah.
I sat through all of that. I can't dedicate 10 more years to non-Superman Superman. I just can't do it. I'm not going to live that long.
Now,
Like my
Wait,
lifespan.
Well, I
What,
hope
Billy?
you live
I will
that
die.
long, Billy.
I
I mean,
will
like-
die waiting for Superman
is there something you
to
haven't
show
told
up.
us?
Well, but this is what I didn't like about Gotham was like Gotham tried to play it both ways because because I watched I think the first 2 seasons of Gotham, and the part that I liked was they were like, okay, this is about the seedy underbelly of Gotham and the world of organized crime, and it's about how the Penguin was this crime boss and how he made his way up through the ranks and took over from Maroni and all these crime and stuff. It's just like that interests me. I'm like, okay. Like it's this kind of crime show, but you have some of these characters that you like, and it's
about the Penguin.
but it's about the Penguin, and
Right.
it's about
Who was great.
It's
And
like
he's
okay,
great.
Penguin was
Yeah.
great.
yeah, the guy that plays the Penguin was great. I was like, okay, I'm interested in this. But as the show went on, it lost the courage of its conviction, and it became more and more about. But now there's Mr. Freeze, and now there's Catwoman, and now it's Poison Ivy, and now and they just started bringing in all the Batman villains. But because they had painted themselves into a corner of a world without a Batman, then it's like, and here's Bruce Wayne, kind of learning what Batman is, but he's not Batman. Here he's wearing a black suit, but he's not Batman. And it's
By
like
the time he's Batman, all of his villains are going to be 50.
are going to be 50 years old.
Yeah.
So it's like Gotham started from a kernel of an idea of like I like the story about police corruption and the rise of these background characters, but the show completely like wimped out and was just like, you know what? No, whatever. It's Batman villains. It's all Batman villains, but no Batman. But we're gonna keep talking about Bruce Wayne becoming Batman. And it's just like, then just make a show about Batman. If that's what you want to do,
I agree.
then make a Batman show. And I'm worried that this is gonna be the same thing, which is like, but it's even a worse. I just don't like this premise. It's just a
It's a
weird
terrible
premise.
premise.
From
It
what I
doesn't make
understand,
sense.
like Gotham corrected itself again by turning the ridiculous up to like a 14 or a 15. And like I quit around the same time you quit, so I was like, I can't watch this anymore.
When it was like
It's
the
boring.
evil Bruce Wayne
Yeah.
doppelganger or whatever, it's
so,
just like
I think I quit before you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember that.
But
I
from
tried-
what I
yeah.
understand, they've made it crazier, which I'm like, okay, at least make something insane. Like instead of a bland premise, at least just go for it, even if it's bad. I don't see the potential of doing the same thing with Metropolis because, and I don't know, maybe someone can correct me because I'm not as big a Superman fan as I am Batman, but Metropolis to me is just a big bright city. Like it doesn't have the same character as a Gotham to me.
But they're giving it somehow like, is there going to be an alternate dimension and universe like in Fringe, the program that you were aping, which is an excellent show that people should watch? Like, or is it like, what are the events that unleash these science crimes that they need to investigate, and why are they paired up? Why is the head of a corporation and a reporter paired up to
Might
investigate
not be
science?
there
Well,
yet.
here's
He
the
might
thing.
just be a lonely
because
real
he's
estate
not the
agent
head of
right
a
now.
corporation yet, and
Look-
she's not a reporter yet.
Yeah, Lois and Lex, they have, somewhat of a history, but it's always been somewhat antagonistic. Just on a practical level.
But they're not investigators. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, on a practical
Lois
level.
kind of is.
Yeah, but as a reporter, like, I
Right.
mean, they're not like
Sure,
official, like,
sure.
they're not
They're
going to
not-
call
no,
them
they're
up.
not
like,
Mulder and Scully.
Yeah,
they're not
they're-
Mulder
yeah.
and Scully.
They
They're
have
supposed
no, like,
to do that.
They can be like, this is weird, but then they don't know, like, the smarts or the PhDs to figure, Lex
and they don't
does,
have,
but-
like, so is Lex just going to hire a lab?
I don't know. But the thing that's strange
My
to me
lab.
is that this is not like going on CW. This is not going on like a network that's established. Like, this show has to help sell an entirely new streaming service. So why would you, like, Teen Titans, that's great. And the costumes, everything's looked really great and cool. But this seems, it's like, why would you sell a non-Superman show? How are you going to get people to buy your service for that? That's asinine. That's bonkers. What is happening?
2 words, Mr. Mixaplex. Sold.
I just watched that show,
Mr. Mixaplex?
about him. Krypton, I'm gonna do my best and like give them Krypton, because maybe if you divorce the idea that Superman comes later, at the very least you have maybe a cool political intrigue
Yeah.
sci-fi show. If you divorce the prequel
Like
concept
Game of
from
Thrones.
it.
But then
in
what's the
space.
point of even
Yeah.
calling it Krypton? Like,
Because
what's the point
it
of
is
the
set
gimmick?
on Krypton.
Because
I'm
it
fine
has
with that.
because it's easy to sell. That's why this is called
Sure.
Metropolis. That's
Yeah.
why it's called Krypton. It's a sci-fi show that they
This-
just slap a
Now,
established
Superman
brand
The
deserves
name.
sad
better.
thing is, dude that plays Superman on Supergirl,
Great.
he's pretty good Superman.
He was
Like,
amazing.
He's very charming. The way they write him is really good. I don't like the big shoulder straps on his shoulders, but that's whatever.
That's such a moot
that's
point. Like,
easily fixed.
Plunging neckline.
Yeah.
he was really like.
It is a bit of almost like a V-neck.
It
Like,
is.
hey, bros. Which,
Yeah, it's Superman's
again,
workout
It's a
costume.
new era. It's a new era.
it's
And
a
it's,
new era,
it's an
man.
alternate Earth. That
Quite a
one,
bit
right?
of clavicle.
But he was
play.
happy to be Superman. He was happy to save people.
yes.
Happy. He was
Yeah.
just happy, which
Yeah,
is great.
he's a really good character. He comes in and he recognizes that Supergirl sort of needs to be built up and has a lot to learn, but never but allows her to do it and never steps in like, no, I'm Superman. Just the way he's written, the way he's presented, and the way he's acted is great. And if they were going to do a Superman show, run with this dude. He's a good catch.
All right, let's end it on a positive note today and say one thing that we're looking forward to in the rest of this week. Dan?
Oh, man.
It's not that I can't think of it. Just it was a complete shift of gears. I'm gonna see Winchester, which looks interesting.
Intriguing.
Although I haven't seen any reviews for it yet, which is not a good sign. But I'm looking forward to seeing. We're a horror movie household, so we're gonna see a Helen Mirren ghost movie. I mean, why
Yeah.
not? So
Mirren.
yeah, I think we're gonna try to review it here on Friday.
And if
'cause
you've
I
never-
don't think that they're even screening it, so I might review it here on
I
Friday.
might have news on that.
Oh, nice.
Well, if you've never visited that house, by the way, make the trip.
Yeah,
because
it's
it
crazy.
is bonkers.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is a real place and ridiculous.
Huh.
Yeah.
What's Joe Starr looking forward to?
I'm actually really looking forward to this week's movie fights.
Yeah, I thought you
It's
might
gonna
take
be
that bait.
Kind of a barn burner. Ed Greer versus Coy Jandreau. Those are
nice.
two very opinionated, very nerdy dudes, and I am excited to watch them swing at each other. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Mr. Billy.
Well, I haven't had a chance yet. It's been very busy, but I am really looking forward to, after this, sneaking away, watching this week's Honest trailer, and then watching you guys do the commentary on
Ah.
I
Transformers.
lost
'cause,
it a little bit. I'm sorry.
even you're ramping me up. You're
Yeah.
hyping me. So I want to watch that, and I still need to watch Charting.
Charting
I really
with
want to watch
Dan.
Charting
Oh,
'cause,
thank you.
box office, it's nuts these days.
It's crazy. We're still looking at. I was looking this morning a little bit, or yesterday, about worldwide. It's very tough to track the worldwide box office, but I'm gathering some sources that I think will work.
Ooh. You know what that means? More data next Monday, and I'm looking forward to that. Also, I will be playing with cats and dogs this week. It's been lovely to have you guys here today. Bye, Billy. Bye,
CJTE.
Joe. Bye, Dan. I assume that there's a Billy and a Joe and a Dan out there also, and that's just that weird. I don't think there's
a little
another
bit of
Roth,
a Billy and
though.
a Dan and Joe and a Roth and all of us.
What are you looking forward to, Joe?